Let me tell you something no one else will. It's not about looks. It's not about money. It's not even about charm. If you want a woman to truly see you, not just look at you, you have to master yourself first. Most men never do. They chase, they perform, they explain. And in doing so, they lose the one thing that could have made her stay: presence. You've been told to be nice, to impress, to say the right words. But the truth is quieter than that. What draws her in isn't your smile, your car, or your confidence tricks. It's your stillness, your ability to remain calm when the world wants you to beg. A man who can stay composed when he's ignored, rejected, or tested. That's the man she can't forget. Because in a world full of noise, stillness becomes power. The lie men believe. Society has been feeding you lies since the day you first cared what someone thought of you. It told you that love is something you earn, through charm, through gifts, through endless effort. That if you chase hard enough, text fast enough, compliment loud enough, she'll finally see your worth. But that's not love. That's performance. And performances always end. Attraction isn't built on approval, it's built on energy, the quiet kind that doesn't beg to be noticed. A woman doesn't fall for the man who needs her attention. She falls for the man who doesn't flinch when he doesn't get it. That man moves slower. He doesn't rush to fill silence. He doesn't need to be the loudest voice in the room, because his presence speaks louder than words ever could. He listens, not to respond, but to understand. He speaks, not to impress, but to express truth. He doesn't chase chaos, he steadies it. You can't fake that kind of energy. You can't buy it with money, charm, or tactics. It's something forged quietly, in solitude, in those late nights when no one's watching, when you choose calm over reaction, patience over panic. That's where your gravity is built. That's where a woman starts to feel something different around you, a stillness that makes her breathe slower, think deeper, and trust more. Because while other men perform for her attention, you've learned something they haven't. Real strength doesn't ask to be seen. It's felt in the pauses, in the restraint, in the silence that doesn't demand. And that's the moment she stops looking at you and starts feeling you. The Stoic Secret. 2,000 years ago, before the noise of social media and the chaos of modern dating, the Stoics already understood something men today have forgotten. Power isn't found in control, it's found in perception. They taught that life will test you, break you, confuse you, but none of that can truly harm you unless you surrender your mind to it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." It's simple. You can't control what she thinks. You can't control what she feels. You can't control whether she stays or leaves. But you can always control how you stand when she walks away. You can decide whether you collapse or stay centered. That's where the difference lies. A boy reacts. He texts back instantly, explains himself, apologizes for existing. A man reflects. He breathes, observes, and chooses his next move with precision. That quiet pause between what happens and how you respond is everything. That's where power lives. When you stop reacting to every shift in her tone, every delay in her reply, every test she throws your way, you become something rare in her world, unmoved. And when a man becomes unmoved, he becomes magnetic. Not because he's cold, but because he's centered. Because in a world that worships reaction, his calm becomes rebellion. Every time you choose to remain grounded when everything tries to shake you, You build a gravity that pulls people in, not through effort, but through presence. That's the Stoic secret. It's not about controlling her. It's about mastering the only battlefield that ever mattered, your own mind. The power of emotional control. Let's be honest. Every man knows this moment, the quiet sting of being ignored. You send a message, she leaves it unread. You see her laughing in stories that don't include you. And somewhere deep in your chest, something starts to tighten. Your mind begins its spiral. Did I say something wrong? Did I move too fast? Did she find someone else? You scroll back through every conversation, every emoji, every word, searching for proof that you didn't imagine the connection. But here's the truth most men never learn. Her silence isn't about you. It's about her. And your reaction to it, that's what reveals who you really are. The average man collapses in that silence. He panics, he double texts, he explains. He gives away his power one message at a time. The Stoic man doesn't. He uses that silence as his training ground. He breathes, he observes, he doesn't chase. He understands that stillness is not weakness, it's control. Because nothing is more unsettling to a chaotic woman than a man who refuses to be pulled into her storm. When you stop reacting, something changes. She starts to feel your absence, not as neglect, but as composure. Your restraint becomes your presence. And that silence, the one that used to haunt you, starts working for you. It becomes your language, calm, grounded, undeniable. Because when you can remain centered in the storm, she feels it. That steadiness, that gravity. And while every other man tries to win her attention, you do the one thing none of them can. You keep your peace. And in a world of noise, that peace becomes irresistible. Words that reach the soul. When you speak to a woman, don't speak to impress her. Don't speak to perform. Don't speak to prove that you're worthy of her time. Speak like a man who's already found his center. Your words should come from stillness, not from the need to be liked, but from the truth of who you are. Say her name once, softly with weight. Not as a trick, but as acknowledgement. Because when you say someone's name with presence, it reminds them they exist in your awareness, not your performance. Don't tell her she's beautiful. Everyone already does. Those words slide off her like water on glass. Instead, tell her something no one else notices. Tell her you admire how calm she stays when things get tense. Tell her you respect how deeply she listens before she speaks. Tell her you like the way her mind pauses to think instead of rushing to answer. Those words land differently. They bypass the surface and go straight to the part of her that's been waiting to be seen. Because the truth is, most men only speak to a woman's ego, the part that craves validation. But when you speak to her essence, her depth, her quiet strength, her being, she feels something rare. Safety. You're not just another man trying to win her attention. You're the man who makes her feel understood without her needing to explain herself. And that changes everything. Because when you stop talking to impress and start speaking with intention, your words carry gravity. They don't entertain, they echo. And in a world of empty compliments and loud voices, that echo lingers long after you've stopped speaking. The body speaks first. Long before you speak, your body has already told her who you are. It's the first language she understands, not your words, but your presence. When you fidget, when your eyes dart away, when your shoulders tighten, she senses it instantly. She doesn't have to think about it. Her body reads it before her mind does. Uncertainty, tension, need. But when you stand still, grounded, shoulders open, breathing slow, something shifts. You don't have to say a word. Your silence communicates everything: confidence without arrogance, strength without aggression, calm without indifference. That's the paradox of real masculinity. It doesn't need to announce itself. It's felt, not performed. Women aren't drawn to loud men, they're drawn to steady ones. Not because steadiness dominates, but because it's dependable. You become the calm center in a world that won't stop spinning. The eye of the storm. The quiet she didn't know she was craving. Attraction isn't about flashing power, it's about creating peace. Her nervous system relaxes around you, not because you're forceful, but because you're still. That's what she remembers when you're gone, the rare feeling of safety. So move slower. Let your steps carry intention. When you sit, settle into the space like you belong there, because you do. When you speak, let pauses hang, don't rush to fill them. When you listen, listen with your whole body, eyes, posture, silence. Before she ever hears your words, she'll feel your presence. And that feeling, the quiet, centered gravity of a man who knows himself, speaks louder than any line you could ever say. Because the body doesn't lie. And when yours is calm, she finally can be too. When things go wrong. No matter how composed you are, there will be days when everything falls apart. The conversation that once flowed easily turns awkward. The warmth fades. The silence grows heavy. And then, without warning, she starts to pull away. You'll stare at your phone, reading old messages like they hold answers. You'll feel that urge to fix, to explain, to chase what's slipping away. It's instinct, it's human, but it's also the very thing that destroys your power. Most men, when they feel that loss coming, panic. They double text, overthink, apologize for things they didn't do. They try to rebuild something that was never under their control to begin with. But a Stoic man understands a harder truth. You don't own outcomes, you only own effort. You don't control her choices, you only control your composure. So when she pulls away, he doesn't follow. He doesn't beg for closure because he knows closure is self-earned, not given. He doesn't demand explanations because he understands that people often leave for reasons they can't even explain themselves. He just stands there, calm, steady, accepting. Not because he's cold, but because he's free. He knows that how he carries himself when things go wrong defines who he really is. The man who walks away with peace in his step leaves a stronger impression than the one who stays to plead. That's why she remembers him long after he's gone, not for what he said, but for what he didn't need to say. Because true power isn't in getting someone to stay. It's in walking away with your dignity intact. And that, quietly, is what makes you unforgettable. The small gestures of strength. Strength isn't always loud. It doesn't always show up in grand gestures, dramatic words, or expensive gifts. Sometimes it lives in the quiet details, in what you notice when no one else does. You don't need to impress her, you need to remember her. There's a difference. When she mentions a book that changed her life, read it. Not to prove anything, but to understand what moves her. When she talks about a fear, listen. Don't rush to fix it. Don't offer solutions. Just be still enough for her to feel heard. And when she goes quiet, don't panic. Don't fill the space with nervous talk. Respect the silence. Sometimes silence is her way of testing if your presence is strong enough to exist without words. Most men can't handle that. They confuse noise with connection. They believe attention means constant action. But a Stoic man knows the truth. Connection doesn't need performance. it needs depth. He understands that peace is its own kind of intimacy, that a small gesture done with awareness carries more weight than 1,000 empty compliments. It's in the way he remembers her favorite author, the way he looks at her without speaking, letting her feel understood, the way he shows up, not as a savior, but as a steady presence that doesn't waver when life gets messy. That's what separates him from the rest. He doesn't try to fill the silence, he becomes the silence. He doesn't seek to be impressive, he seeks to be anchored. Because in the end, the smallest gestures, the ones made from calm awareness, are the ones she'll remember longest. Not because they were loud, but because they were real. The Stoic test, when she pulls away. This is the test every man faces, and most fail. When she begins to pull away, their instinct takes over. They chase. They overthink. They write long messages trying to explain what went wrong, hoping the right words can pull her back. But she's already gone, not physically but emotionally. And the more they chase, the further she drifts. You, however, are different. You understand that attraction cannot be demanded and love cannot be convinced. So you don't chase. You lean back. You let her feel the space between you, not as punishment but as peace. You trust that your absence speaks louder than your arguments ever could. In that silence, something unexpected happens. She remembers your steadiness, the way your calm never depended on her attention. She recalls your composure, the rare stillness that made her feel safe. And then for the first time she wonders, why isn't he chasing me like everyone else? That's when the shift occurs. Not because you played a strategy, but because you stopped playing altogether. Because your strength no longer comes from control, it comes from detachment. You don't need to prove your worth. You embody it. And in a world full of men begging to be seen, you become the one she can't forget, not through noise, but through silence. Not through pursuit, but through presence. Be true to yourself. Being true to yourself doesn't mean standing still. It means acting with integrity, even when no one is watching. It means showing up as the man you are, imperfect, honest, and unafraid of your own reflection. Stop molding yourself into what you think she wants. That kind of shape-shifting only leaves you hollow. Instead, become the man you respect when the world goes quiet. Because the moment you start living by your own compass, something changes. You stop begging for validation. You stop chasing attention. You begin to move with direction, calm, clear, certain. And that direction is magnetic. Desire fades, looks change, approval shifts, but direction remains. It's what makes a man unshakable. It's what makes her stop and look not at what you have, but at who you've become. The closing reflection, the quiet power. Everything you've heard, everything you've practiced leads here, to the quiet power that no one can take from you. You cannot control her heart. You cannot make her stay, understand, or love you the way you want. But you can control something far greater, yourself. When you master your emotions, your tone, and your silence, you stop living for reaction. You stop needing to prove anything to anyone. You move through life with quiet authority, not loud, not desperate, but grounded. You no longer chase love, you carry it within you. You no longer explain your worth, you live it in every action, every pause, every breath. Be the calm in the storm. Be the rock others lean on when everything else falls apart. Let your steadiness be your voice. Let your silence be your strength. Because a man who can stay composed when others panic, who can hold peace when the world shakes, becomes unforgettable. He doesn't need validation to feel powerful. He doesn't need attention to feel alive. His presence speaks for him, quiet, steady, undeniable. And that's the paradox of true power. The less you need to explain it, the more the world feels it. So walk calmly. Move deliberately. And let your silence say what words never could, that you have mastered not her, but yourself. Epilogue. Don't do this to win her back. Do it to find yourself again. Because the real victory isn't in making someone return. It's in returning to who you were before the noise, before the chase, before the need to prove. When you master yourself, the world begins to shift. Not because you forced it, but because your energy changes. Your calm becomes gravity. Your silence becomes presence. Your direction becomes strength. You don't attract by trying. You attract by becoming. Master yourself, and everything else quietly falls into place.